All right, welcome to the Sports Guys. Another weekend recap. We haven't done one in 2 weeks. March 3rd, 2025. We have so many stories to get to you guys tonight. So we're really excited to bring this to you tonight and talk through all the things that have happened since we last met. How you doing, Robbie?
I'm doing really well.
Good, man. What do you think about all these sports that are going on all at the same time? We don't have football, but we have basically everything else.
There's so much college, hoops, pro, hockey, NFL combine, everything.
Draft.
So much good stuff. Hockey.
Trades.
Yeah, like NHL hockey, trades, all kinds of sports, rumors. So much good stuff.
Transfer portal. It's crazy. It's crazy. There's so many stories. You can't follow them all, literally. So we're going to do
all
our
the
best.
Tournaments are heating up. All the league championships. Some of the leagues have already picked their winner.
Yeah, ACC tournament next week, and then you're on to March Madness. I mean, we're already in March, so.
I know. Man, I wish we were in Vegas. Oh.
Me too. Me too. Anything big kind of hit you from this past weekend? Any big story that came across your headlines?
Really enjoyed watching college basketball last weekend. I've really enjoyed watching Auburn a bunch this year in hoops. The Four Nation hockey was fantastic. I couldn't stop watching.
It was really great.
Must-see TV. So
what's interesting is that was their attempt to make the NHL All-Star game a little more relevant, and a little more interesting, and it definitely did.
It worked, no question. I mean, they announced it last year at the NHL All-Star game. They picked teams that have a lot of pride and have a lot of clout in the hockey world. They made sure it was all NHL players. That was the only thing that requirement that they had to be on an active roster. So they couldn't get pulled in a million different directions. It was just a fantastic tournament, and what a great idea to mix it up. And it really had some relevance and meaning. And
some juice.
Yeah, and it had juice. And it was round robin, so you could lose and still stay in it. So really a good tournament. And then, obviously the U.S. and Canada gave us everything you would expect.
For me, it was, Four Nations. It was the Luka trade. It was the Jimmy Butler trade. It was, yesterday, the Deebo Samuel trade to the Commanders. We'll talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
The trade that was announced today, which is the Carolina Panthers are negotiating to get Cooper Kupp. So there's a lot of movement going on. There are a lot of teams that feel like they can improve with one or two pieces. And so, it's interesting to watch. It makes the NFL offseason really exciting as well. And like you said, all these other sports are just killing it right now. I'm excited about ACC tournament next year. Next week.
There are some NFL teams who are in a little bit of a state of denial, thinking they're one draft away from being really good. Go look at the bottom 5 teams in different categories, and they're not one or two players away.
At the same time, you have a team like the 49ers that had to let Deebo go and have been declining a little bit because they know they have to pay Brock Purdy. At the same time, they've got 11 draft picks this year. So if they do a good job and if they draft really, really well, they can be right back in it. So
that's true.
So we'll see what happens.
If they had Howie Roseman picking,
exactly.
I'd be all right.
I think you get Roseman, probably number 1. You get Adam Peters with the Commanders, maybe number 2 right now. Those are probably the top 2 guys. You think about what Peters
the guy from Detroit.
Yeah.
Think
about what Peters took over. He took over a dumpster fire last year, 1 year ago.
Do you know any other team that could win like the Lions were with 11 of their starting defensive players out?
That's a good point. But my point is the Commanders have been a dumpster fire for 25 years. And he takes over a team like that from a pathetic ownership group. They sell to a new owner. They bring in Adam Peters. And in 1 year and one draft, he turns them into an NFC championship caliber team with one quarterback draft and a bunch of other pieces. So, there's some great GMs out there. And yet you look at there's 7 teams right now going into the NFL draft that have not solved their quarterback situation. So,
right. That's right.
So, it's exciting right now. I'm really, really happy with what's going on. Of course, you have college sports that we care about with lacrosse and with the college baseball season kicking off. And
Yeah, check out our episode on the college lacrosse preview. It was pretty fun to do, and there was a lot of good information in there. So check it out.
Good stuff. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at what we got for this week. Well, let's take a brief moment just to recognize our sponsor for tonight, and that's Jersey Mike's. They've been our sponsor now for a couple of weeks, and we've been really delighted to work with them. And I'll just tell you that I just downed, Rob, your favorite sandwich, which is the Mike's Philly, and it was incredible. You're absolutely right. What a sandwich.
I try to, anytime we're having a podcast, I try to get one. That's kind of my ritual. I love them. It's so delicious. It's actually really pretty good for you. I mean, it's one of the better things you can have that's amazingly delicious. They always have a smile. It's toasted. I can't have it frequently enough. When I want a break from cooking, because I cook all the time. When I want a break, I go to Jersey Mike's. I get my steak and cheese sub, and I'm as happy as you can imagine. I'm so happy when I have that.
I will say I usually get the number 13, which is the original Italian. That's what's behind me right now. That's my favorite sandwich. Still is. But I decided to go the number 17, Mike's Philly, and wow, you were absolutely right.
I've been going to Mike's a long time, and back in the day, I used to mix it up. So, I mean, there's a lot of amazing options in there, but I'm so hooked on the steak and cheese now but if I ever wanted a little variety, there's so much to choose from, so much amazing fresh ingredients. It's affordable. Not everything's affordable right now. This is one of them, and it's such a good dinner. It fills me up so much, and I'm so happy after I have one. It gets me pumped up, ready for our podcast. So.
That's great.
Go out and get one today.
All you guys go get one. Go to jerseymikes.com or you can do DoorDash. You can do the Jersey Mike's app. There's a lot of different ways to order it, or just go to your local store and get one tonight. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Jersey Mike's. This is our weekend recap, March 3rd, 2025. We mentioned some of these names here. The first one's Cooper Flagg on the top left up there. He's having a literally historic season for a freshman. Just crushing every single statistic for Duke, and in some cases, statistic in the ACC. You had the part 2 matchup between USA and Canada, which we mentioned. We're going to get into that here in a minute. Some of the details of that matchup and part 1 and part 2. You got the Luka trade we got to talk about. We have the Jimmy Butler trade we got to talk about. The Deebo Samuel trade we got to talk about. And then we have 2 of the guys who are the most premier guys in the draft this year. Cam Ward, who everyone believes will go first in the quarterback category, and Ashton Genty, who's going to go first in the RB category. Both of these guys have refused to participate in the combine. So I guess that's just a trend. Some of these big guys are not going to participate because they know what their position is.
Yeah, all they could do is go down,
Right, exactly. Any general thoughts about some of these top stories?
I mean, they're all great stories. Each one has a lot of juice and coverage around them for various reasons, trades and all the drama around that. And there were a lot of people upset about the Luka one. There were scouts that were saying they were downright angry, etc. So that was interesting to watch that.
You have the Lakers go from the number 8 seed before Luka. Now after Luka, they've won 6 in a row.
Yeah,
and they're blowing people out. Yeah. And not only that, but they seem to have gelled so fast. Nobody thought it could be this fast. They thought maybe they could gel before the playoffs.
And, see, it really proved to be a win-win because Dallas is going to get a really good player in Anthony Davis. They're going to not have to pay Luka and have question marks about his health and his conditioning and his soft tissue injuries. And then you have Luka, who gets a fresh start, gets to go work with a person who takes their body very seriously in LeBron James. He's playing with one of the best players of all time. So he's getting a lot of support. So they're both scoring like crazy, assisting each other. And it's a good fit. Like he's a better fit in LA than he is in Dallas, in my opinion.
The most surprising thing that's come out of the trade, though, is, like you said, LeBron doesn't have to pick up all the scoring now.
Yeah.
And what that's done is turned the Lakers into the number 1 defensive team, not offensive, defensive. They've been the number 1 defensive team over the last 8 games and over really the last 18 games. And that's a big enough sample size. So what's really strange is that somehow Luka has come on and his scoring is allowing the other 4 guys to lock down on defense. And
They don't have to worry as much about scoring. And honestly, LeBron's one of the biggest mismatches on defense that I've ever seen, because he can play all 5 positions on defense. There's never been a player who could do that before.
It's true.
You had either amazing defenders like Michael Jordan who could guard the 1 or 2, maybe 3. You had other guys, taller guys who could guard the 5, 4, maybe 3, but nobody could guard a point guard if they were that big. You've got LeBron who can guard all 5 positions, and he has. And so defensively, I think he doesn't always have to be the star. He likes passing it.
Right. No doubt. Actually, he prefers that. He prefers that. He really does.
Sometimes. So he definitely would like to focus on defense. And Luka's never, he hasn't had enough defense around him to get it done. So he's liking this. This is a good fit. This was a win-win because now Dallas gets picks, and they're going to be good in the future. So it's kind of good for both sides. I was saying that at the time of the trade before I saw that it would work.
I think the reason the Dallas fans are so upset is because they were in the NBA Finals last year, and they're like, "Why did you blow up a team that was in the NBA Finals?"
Yeah.
But what they didn't realize is they structurally were degrading, and they weren't going to be in the NBA Finals this year. It was pretty clear.
Yeah, and they were going to have to pay Luka way more than they were comfortable with his track record of soft tissue injuries and conditioning. So they felt like, man, what can we do about this guy that we really like, but we're not sure he's going to be here, and he's definitely not worth the max contract that we're going to have to sign him to. So I think it worked out okay for both sides.
And then on the Jimmy Butler trade, you've got a situation where the Golden State Warriors, for the first time in 14 years, were going to miss the playoffs. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
And they were playing so badly. He comes to the team, and now they've ripped off 7 in a row. And actually, I was just watching a little while ago. They're playing my Hornets tonight, and they're beating the Hornets. So it looks like it's going to be 8 in a row. And
what I picked up on is that it seems like Stephen Curry has a little more juice. The other night he scored 50-some points, and he just seems like he's reinvigorated. And I'm pretty sure this trade had a lot to do with it.
I agree. Same thing with LeBron. You want your running mate, and neither one had it, and now they both have a running mate. So
yeah, that's right.
Pretty interesting. Any initial thoughts about the Debo trade?
I really like Debo. I think he's going to be a really good weapon, and so I like it a lot. I don't think he's wildly expensive. He's definitely worthwhile as a leader. As an experienced player, he's going to help Daniels a lot, and he's very excited to be there. His quote was something along the lines of, "I'm really happy to be playing with a competent quarterback."
That's right. That's right.
That was a little bit of an underhanded dig at Purdy, but I think it was a little unfair. But he's excited to play with Daniels, and that's a good thing.
What's amazing is you think about
that's coming up.
We were talking about Adam Peters being, if it weren't for Roseman, the executive of the year. Think about what he pulled off of this trade. He gives up a 5th-round pick for Deebo Samuel, who's under contract for 2 years, so he gets 2 years out of him. And he gets the 49ers to pick up $31 million in dead cap space. So he doesn't have to pay him very much. So it's really unbelievable, really.
Yeah, it was a great trade for him.
You pick up a guy who's very motivated now, feels like he wasn't really respected the last 2 years. And all he wants is a ring.
And it was frustrating because he was on a team that was considered old and kind of breaking down. And they were very highly talented and great players, but they were on the bench the whole time in the training room. So Debo wants to, while he's still young enough, take a shot at climbing the ladder and see how high he can get.
Right.
And there's a perception of the Niners that they're kind of falling apart as they try to clear space to overpay Brock Purdy.
That's right. Well, let's talk about the Four Nations Hockey Championship. You mentioned it. It was just an incredibly exciting event, way better than even I expected. But you have this Part 2 concept where the Canada's hockey team beats the U.S. in overtime in Game 2 after they had lost to the U.S. a week earlier, 3-1. And in that 3-1 U.S. victory, it really felt like two nations that were really kind of huge rivals. Yeah. And there were a lot of fights in that game. You had the Kachuk brothers both getting into fights. There was a fight 10 seconds into the game.
No, it was 2 seconds, 5 seconds, and 9 seconds.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
3 fights in the first 10 seconds of the game.
What were your thoughts about these two games, part 1 and part 2 of this rivalry?
So game 1, I saw the interview with the Kachuk brothers, and they were talking about how they felt very disrespected by Team Canada and the Canadian fans, that they arranged. They were in the hotel and they were kind of communicating, and a couple of the guys were all talking about, and then they got permission from the coach to drop the gloves, and they said we want to send them a message that we're the bad guys and we're not going to be intimidated. And so they got permission to do it. And Brady said the toughest part was watching his brother Matthew go out there for the second fight. He said he wasn't nervous about his at all. It was kind of funny. But and then our smaller offensive player took on their big defender, and that was kind of a scary prospect because that guy was quite a handful. But that the 3 fights in the first 10 seconds sent a strong message that we're not going to back down. We're not going to be intimidated. And even though Canada scored first, the U.S. had a really nice game, and we were out skating them. We were out competing them, and clearly our young players are superior to their older veterans.
So do you think this juice is coming from, first of all, I think the format was absolutely fantastic. They need to continue this, 4 nations. So that's number 1. But number 2, you obviously have on the international political stage, you have the 51st state scenario and all of that. So that certainly heightened this game, did it not?
Yeah, there was a tiny bit of that, because what happened was the Canadian fans booed during the American anthem. And so the American national anthem, and that kind of gave the 3 guys that had already said we're going to drop our gloves and got permission from the coach in the first minute, it gave them a little more juice and anger going into those. So the Kachuk brothers did an amazing job of kind of handling their guys. And the reason that's important is it set a tone for the rest of the game that we weren't going to back down. We weren't scared of them. And we ended up winning it because we were mentally tough, and we mentally got them in a position where they realized they couldn't intimidate the U.S. And
what's
amazing,
it was
a really good game.
In the second game, it was a really great game. U.S. had a lead and really should have won the game in overtime. They had 3 shots on the doorstep, and somehow the goalkeeper kept it out. I have no idea how he did it.
Bennington, the goalie for Canada, played out of his mind, especially in overtime. He won that game for them in overtime.
That's right. So that really should have been a win for the U.S. again. And
tip your hat. The guy played great,
But you just have to love this rivalry. It's just not going to get anything but better, I think.
Well, nobody can wait till the next one. You know what I mean?
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Be
exciting. So the next one is just a picture of Kachuk. I'm not sure which brother Kachuk this was.
That's Matthew.
Okay, Matthew. That was one of the fights we talked about.
Yeah.
And then another one here where they're psyching each other up to essentially go into battle.
Brady's got his mouth open.
Yeah.
He's screaming at his brother, like, let's go.
And then this was at the aftermath after they beat the U.S. in overtime, Canada. And you see they posted this thing, the 11th province has a nice ring to it. That was kind of their response.
Touche, to
the 51st state. They want to call us the 11th province. So
okay.
Fair. What are your thoughts about that?
You tip your hat. They did awesome. It was I think our young players are up and coming, and Canada knows it, and they have to take the win and feel good about it and say, I don't know how much more we can hold these guys off.
Yeah, do you feel like that's the case? Because you mentioned that in a previous episode that you think USA hockey is really on the rise.
It's well known in hockey that Team USA under 18 and under 21, I believe it is, or under 19, all the youth hockey in the U.S. is up and coming. And so there's a lot of great players that are just hitting the NHL or just about to arrive. And there's not a lot of amazing young Canadian players, according to a lot of experts. Now, I'm sure it's debatable. You're always going to have good players coming out of Canada. But I think they're impressed with what the youth hockey of America is doing. And this is one of the better times in terms of.
I mean, this was already a good rivalry already, but now you add 51st state, 11th province. You add this 4 Nations hockey championship to it. You got the Kachuk brothers, and this is the best rivalry in international hockey, right? Has to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And plus these two countries kind of own the NHL for the most part.
Yep.
So NHL returns to ESPN in a 7-year deal with emphasis on streaming. This was a huge contract that was signed. Actually, it was signed the day before this second game, this part 2. So ESPN has essentially committed to the NHL for 7 years and sees the value of hockey as really an up-and-coming and popular sport.
It's a great sport.
What do you think that means for NHL? What do you think it means for ESPN to have this flagship, partnership?
I think it helps both sides. The NHL definitely gets more eyeballs, more mainstream this way, which is going to allow the sport to showcase itself, which I think hockey sells itself. So if you can just get people to watch it, people will enjoy it and come back because it's such a fun, it's a good sport. It's incredible athletes. They're huge. They're fast. The skating, the hitting. There's a little bit of everything. And I think that when you get to enough mainstream eyeballs out there with the main programming, instead of having it be games that you can't ever find, then it's going to be really good for the sport. And then ESPN could use a little shot in the arm, and I think hockey will bring a new dynamic to them. And so I think it's a win-win.
And it gets them Canada too, because Canada will be watching ESPN as well. So,
yeah.
So another thing, just to make room for the NHL contract, this was really surprising to me. ESPN opted out of their deal with Major League Baseball, and they basically, after this season, this will be their last season with Major League Baseball, they're cutting them off. And Major League Baseball will not have, for the first time in 55 years, a major flagship contract. And so what does that say about that sport, that they're getting dropped and they're becoming essentially a regional sport to be picked up only by local stations or local TV?
It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. I mean, there's a lot of great baseball right now. There's a lot of great talent. Every team's got a lot of, stars.
Because I felt like the last 2 seasons of MLB were pretty darn good, and some of the
they were really
rule
good.
changes they made were actually pretty effective. And so this
I like them a lot.
This surprised me. Because what is ESPN going to fill for programming from May to end of August? What are they going to put in there? Hockey's going to be over. So I don't know. They have a huge hole in their schedule now.
I'm sure they have a plan.
Yeah, maybe college baseball, potentially. I don't know. Which goes to the end of June. Because they have that on ESPN. I don't know. This was interesting to me that they're switching out what used to be called America's pastime for now the NHL. Really interesting. So looking at some of the NFL offseason headlines, you got Colorado Shedeur Sanders will not participate in any drills in the NFL Combine, but he will come to the Combine for interviews, team interviews that want to talk to him. And that obviously is not that surprising because the last couple of years this has been the case. Last year, Caleb Williams, who went number 1, along with Jaden Daniels and Drake May, all 3 of them did not throw in the Combine last year, but did do interviews. So what do you think of this new movement?
I don't think it's a big deal. I think what happens is everybody gets around these guys and they say, you've already got the top 3 spots. You don't have to go out there and bomb and have and hurt your stock. So if you go out there and don't do well, you're going to go downward. If you do great, all you'll do is get picked in the exact same spot. So it's only lose for you.
And what's interesting is Will Howard yesterday at the Combine had one of the most horrific sessions anyone's ever seen. He could not hit one receiver. He missed like 21 straight.
That's the danger of it.
And so now all of a sudden people are scratching their heads at what they thought was going to be a second-round pick. He's dropping. Like
that's the thing. Like you can really hurt your stock. And granted, scouts tend to look at a bunch of criteria, not just how fast he ran at the Combine or.
It just made Will Howard. He's got a big arm. It just made him look like he's a huge project for somebody. Whoever takes him.
Yeah, it can hurt you for sure when you don't live up to what's expected. That's a danger.
But there isn't any part of you that it bothers you that these guys won't go participate in the NFL Combine where they've got their opportunity to show their wares? I don't know. Just
no. If you're in the top 3 of each of your position groups, the only thing you can do is hurt yourself.
Yeah, I guess so. No. It's interesting. So the big question this draft in the quarterback category is going to be Cam or Shedeur. This has been the question really all of the college season as well. It's been down to these two guys. The consensus coming out of the combine and out of the interviews is that Cam is the clear leader right now in the clubhouse and that he's going to be the first quarterback taken. And Shedeur is not only going to be the second quarterback taken, but he's actually dropping down the board right now. So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think that's happening?
Well, I think we were talking about that, of course, in the car this morning, which we do all the time. I think that both of these quarterbacks have potential to be pretty good. I don't think we're looking at a Jaden Daniels or something, but I think they're both going to be decent NFL quarterbacks. I think it's too early to say if one will be a bust and another one won't. I don't think Shedeur should be falling that much. I've heard that he's had some inaccuracy problems and some other things. It's not just that.
Cam
has I was about to say, in addition to that, there's a little bit of a Deion fatigue. Do we want to have the sideshow that Deion brings in, or do we want to pick somebody that can let us develop them quietly? And but I think Shedeur is getting a little bit of a raw deal. I would tend to pick him in the first couple rounds, pretty comfortably.
You got the sideshow you talk about, but you also have, when it comes to just pure arm strength, Cam has the stronger arm. There's just no doubt about it. Yeah. And so if you're talking prototypical, if you want a guy who's kind of like a, Josh Allen type, that's going to be Cam with the strong arm. Shedeur has a decent arm, but not a great arm.
Yeah. I think both of these guys have potential, and I think a lot depends on where they're going to end up. What's the coaching team and development situation? Mm-hmm. Are they going to be forced in because they're picked by a bad team and then not mentored properly, so they get broken in the first 2 seasons? Or do they go somewhere, drop a little bit, and go somewhere that's to a decent team and good coaching, and with a somebody like a McVay or something like that? I'm not saying the Broncos.
I think if Shedeur does not go in the first 8 picks, he has a real risk of maybe falling out of the first round. And there are teams that like Jackson Dart above Shedeur in the bottom half of the first round.
I think if Shedeur fell, it might be one of the best things that ever happened to him.
Possibly, yes.
Seriously.
You could possibly see Jackson Dart go over Shedeur. I still don't think it'll happen. But Jackson Dart is going up and Shedeur is going down right now. So we'll have to see.
I think the ceiling for Shedeur is decent, so it's worth taking a shot as long as you don't overcommit too much draft capital. But.
Right. So next item here is the 49ers are pursuing Joey Bosa to join his brother Nick, and they'd be the bookends of that line. I'm not sure how much Joey has in the tank anymore. He's been kind of in and out of the lineup for the last 2 years. Not sure if he's fully healthy. So what are your thoughts about these brothers taking on the 49ers defense?
I mean, obviously, when they're healthy, that would be a monster situation to try and block. But I think putting them together might be really good for encouraging them to stay on the field. I think they could motivate each other.
You think it could rejuvenate both of their careers, maybe?
It could. It could, but I'm not saying I'm predicting it. I don't think Nick Bosa needs resurrecting. Right. I think Joey has had some injuries recently, and therefore he's a question mark. But if you were to get both of them at their best, you really could have something there.
Do you see Nick Bosa's physique is just ridiculous? He's just like iron.
He works out like crazy.
Yeah, imagine trying to block that.
No.
Goodness.
No.
So top 10 free agents by rank in the offseason: T. Higgins, Trey Smith, who's a guard for Kansas City, Sam Darnold with Minnesota, Chris Godwin, one of the best wide receivers, although he's coming off an injury, so there's a little concern there. Mm-hmm. Zach Bond, who had a huge Super Bowl for the Eagles, is actually a free agent. They want to try to re-sign him. Khalil Mack is a free agent. He says he does want a new home, so that'll be interesting to see where he lands. You got Nick Bolton from the Chiefs. Byron Murphy is an excellent cornerback for Minnesota, maybe the best cornerback on the market right now. Josh Sweat, who had also a monster game in the Super Bowl. And
he's awesome.
Ward for the 49ers is also available. So what are your thoughts about these guys who could clearly make whoever picks them up better as an instant starter?
Yeah, I think they all bring something. They all have a lot of mileage left on their tires, so to speak. All of them would help their teams. I think several of them are going to stay where they are, but there's nobody in there that looks like a bust or a way over the hill. All their best years are behind them. So
I wish I wish the Panthers could get Josh Sweat.
Yeah, they need that kind of edge rush.
He is. I'm going to be watching all these guys, see where they land. It'll be interesting. So the Bengals placed T. Higgins on the franchise tag, which comes out to $26.2 million next year. So essentially, they're paying their wide receiver $26 million. Which seems a little high for your WR2.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
What do you think about that?
I probably would have gotten rid of him, to be honest.
Okay.
And drafted somebody else.
What do you think about them putting $60 million a year into wide receivers?
I just think it's a mistake. Granted, it's nice this year that the cap goes up, but still, everyone's cap goes up, so everyone can spend more.
I guess they wanted to keep Burrow happy, and they're tired of being deemed as a cheap organization, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that really addresses the defense at all. I think now they're just going to use all their draft picks on defense and hope that they pick well, But,
yeah, that's right. I like T. Higgins. I'm not sure he's worth this kind of money, though. I really think, $15 million, somewhere in that range.
No, I'd say somewhere between 10 and 12, maybe.
Right. But he's off the market now, so we'll see what happens there.
He's a good receiver, but he's not like a game-changing number one or anything.
So 3 guys that all of the experts think should be traded in the offseason. Their teams should give these guys a chance to go for a new situation and should get the picks in return. One is Micah. The Cowboys have paid everybody else. They have not paid Micah yet, and he's going to demand a really big salary. So they should go ahead and ship him out and do a trade and sign deal and try to get some picks. Tyreek Hill with the Dolphins. Seems like he's kind of lived out his usefulness there in the Dolphins offense, and they can get some value for him right now. And then DK Metcalf with Seattle is looking for a new home. What are your thoughts about those 3 guys? Should they stay put or should they move on to a new team?
I think in all 3 cases it would make sense to move them on. But there's a lot of variables, so I don't know. Each of their contracts has to make sense.
I still think the Cowboys will find a way to keep Micah Parsons. I just don't think they're ready to give up on him yet.
Maybe.
I do think Tyreek will end up somewhere else. I don't know where. They're talking maybe Baltimore Ravens, which would be interesting for him to go join Lamar. And then DK Metcalf, I also believe, will go somewhere else. So I think Micah may be the only one who stays with his team. We shall see. This was an interesting one. John Madden's grandson will be coaching in the NFL next year. He's going to be working with the Washington Commanders as the offensive quality control coach. So that's kind of cool that he'll be working in the NFL. And, of course, I love John Madden, so cool to see his grandson actually entering as a coach. So what is your thought?
It'll be cool. Hopefully he's got that passion, the Madden passion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
I wonder if he can fly in the airplane because John Madden couldn't.
What's cool is he's going to be working in Cliff Kingsbury's group. So that'll be cool for him to learn from him.
Oh, of course.
Some more offseason headlines here. Who's going to emerge as RB2? Genty's got it locked up at the top, but you got a bunch of other backs behind him. A lot of people think Hampton's the second best guy from Carolina. They say the best fit there is Pittsburgh. Caleb Johnson, best fit is the Chargers. Judkins from Ohio State, of course, had a great run in the playoffs last year. They're thinking the Giants may pick him up. They have to replace Saquon. Trevion Henderson to the Raiders. Dylan Sampson to go to the Kansas City Chiefs. I know you love him.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of his for a while.
That'd be a huge pickup for the Chiefs if they're able to bring him in and make him the feature back. Then you got Tutin from Virginia Tech going to the Broncos. And then Cam Scatabo, who, of course, we saw a lot of him in the playoffs last year, potentially going to the Ravens as kind of a backup for
I talked about him quite a lot. Yeah. You know, out of this list, who kind of impressed me the most? I hate to say it, Basil Tutin.
Yeah, no, he's very good.
He went off the rails. I mean, he was grading well in every category. He had he was first in 40, first in vertical jump, second
and
in broad jump.
And by the way, not only first in 40, but first in 40 in the fastest class of all time.
Yeah.
It's the number one class of all time for running backs in terms of speed.
Yeah, so he just went off on the athleticism Richter scale.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
if the Broncos pick him up, that'll be a really nice pickup for them.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to help somebody in a big way in year one.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Scatabo. I'd say that I really followed Genty throughout the season, but I also always talked highly of Sampson. So I think that he's going to have a great career. And then the two guys from Ohio State, just a lot of good running backs this year. Got to get one.
Hampton and Johnson. I mean, these are all really good backs. I think they're all going to have good careers. So the big question is, can Scatabo improve his stock at the combine?
He actually had to bail out of a lot of the events, so he was considered disappointing.
Oh, is that right?
He did do a nice job of vertical jump. So, I mean, he showed athleticism. He showed athleticism, and everyone knows he's got heart. But he was kind of struggling with some kind of small injury, quad or something like that, something small, nothing concerning. But he couldn't go full throttle.
So do we think that's going to hurt his stock? Is he going to stay around that number 8 slot maybe? Or
I think he had a really impressive run in the playoffs. He was an absolute beast. He's throwing up on the sidelines, then going in and throwing touchdowns and running
and he can't be tackled. I've never seen someone break tackles like this guy.
Yeah, he's like John Riggins, but faster. You know.
So if he did go to the Ravens and he backed up Derrick Henry, I mean that's pretty sweet. 1-2 combo.
Yeah.
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 So next one is, will the Kansas City Chiefs address their offensive line? I mean, they're in the same situation they were after the Tampa Bay loss in the Super Bowl, where their offensive line was just disappointing in the playoffs. So do you think they will, and how will they do it?
I'm not sure if they will. I think they will, because in the past they've realized it was a weakness and responded and made it a high priority. I think they're kind of right there this year. So if you don't protect Mahomes, you don't get all world, off the chart Mahomes. You get a guy who's running for his life, doing some special things, but also getting disrupted. And so they want to make sure that doesn't happen. I think Andy Reid and his team are smart enough to know where their weaknesses are, and they know that the offensive line is where they really kind of need to start.
I 100% think they will address it. I think Andy Reid loves the offensive line, loves putting it together. I think he looks at it as a challenge this year. He knows that they let him down and that they were completely decimated in that Super Bowl game. And so the good news is that he's got a great staff. He's got a great front office, and I do think they will address it, and they will be better. Will they be championship level? I don't know. But
I watched the combine with the boys for offensive linemen. It was pretty fun. It was fun to watch.
Do they like it?
Running 40 times, these monster dudes. Yeah. At one point, they had 3 straight 6'7" guys. It's a good offensive line class. This is a good time to get one of your O linemen, no doubt about it. So if I'm one of these teams up pretty high, I might think about using it for getting one of those guys that you can build around for 12 to 15 years.
For sure. They will get it addressed. I have confidence.
I think so too.
So this is an interesting quote from Tom Brady. To be successful at anything, the truth is you don't have to be special. You just have to be what most people aren't, which is consistent, determined, and willing to work for it. Yeah,
he always says that if you work harder than everyone else, good things will happen. And if you don't work as hard as anyone else, you're going to just be real mediocre. So he was always a preparation guy, and everything in his philosophy comes off from that.
And don't you think he was all three of these things? Consistent, determined, and willing to work for it.
Yep.
There's no question he was.
Yeah.
So you could study his work ethic for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to love this one. You have breaking news that 10% of the Dolphins has been agreed to sell by Stephen Ross to Dan Marino's the legend quarterback. And this is becoming a trend with teams who are starting to sell 10% stakes to essentially Hall of Fame quarterbacks or other players. So what are your thoughts about what does this do for the Dolphins to have a new kind of face of the franchise?
I mean, I love it. I think it's he's the greatest Dolphin quarterback of all time, one of the greatest, top 5 to 6 greatest of all time. His winning passion and his fiery spirit will only help his team, I believe. It'll create a standard of excellence, and I think that the Dolphins would be lucky to have him in there.
It's smart for these guys because Stephen Ross can pocket $700 million, and second, he can push Dan Marino out into the spotlight as the face of the franchise to do all the interviews and stuff.
Yeah,
the Washington Commanders have done that with Magic Johnson. He's a 5% owner of the Washington Commanders, but he's always out there doing interviews on behalf of the Commanders. So it's an interesting theory and process that these big owners are doing is putting these legends into their franchises and then making them the faces of it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how he does. I think he'll be good. Another 10% owner just happened, and that is DeBartolo has now sold 10% to Joe Montana, who's, of course, their legendary quarterback, one of my favorite NFL players of all time myself. So what are your thoughts about this?
I think you're getting guys in their 50s and 60s who are a little bored. They want to get connected back to the game. They don't really want to coach and get all stressed out again.
They have a lot of money. They want to sit in the box.
I'm not sure being an owner is that stressful. I mean, I'm sure it is, but it's not like being a coach where you feel like your job's on the line every week.
Do you know how much money the teams make now just off of television? I mean, it's almost like you can shoot fish in a barrel with these teams.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, yeah, I agree with you. And I think this is a good move for the league to have all these guys involved as minority owners. I just think it's smart. I really do. And I love it.
No doubt about it. It's bringing their brand to the team that they're attached to. They're attaching their brand that they're already thought of as part of. So, I mean, it's good.
Yeah, agreed. So this was an interesting one. The NFL is now replacing the first down chains. The chains are gone for next year with the Hawkeye virtual measurement. It's going to be very similar to the way they use it at Wimbledon in tennis or some of the other sports where the computer makes the decision if it's in or out. It's going to be a very similar technology. Something like the Josh Allen play in the playoffs would have been reviewed by the computer and not by the refs.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about this moving into the modern age and getting rid of the chains and going to?
I think we finally reached where it's time.
Are you going to miss the guy sitting there and doing the 3 inches and all that?
I kind of am. That was kind of a fun. It reminded me of the Bocce Boys measure.
Right.
It reminded me of when you play bocce. Some of these serious players come out with the measuring tape and they want to measure each ball. And
the technology is there and it's very good now. I think that the league is ready for this. I really do.
Too. I do too, for sure.
Although I'm old school, but I like this new rule.
I'm old school in a lot of stuff. I don't see a problem with this technology helping spot it in a more organized way.
And when you have a big game with a huge play on the line like that, and with the amount of fourth downs these teams are going for now, you're going to have a lot of really consequential calls. And I'd rather the computer did tell me, did the guy get there or not?
Right.
You get the call right. So Raiders want to trade up for Cam Ward. They're making lots of noise about this. They're bringing him in tomorrow for an interview. Even though they're not sitting in second right now, they're sitting down a couple spots below that, but they would have to trade up. Do you think that the Raiders should stop trying to wallow in anonymity and just trade away the future and go get their guy?
I mean, I don't think they're that close. They were the worst running team in the NFL last year.
But they see
1,357 yards rushing as a team, which shows you that they have a lot of needs. They have almost everything. Almost every position is a position need. So I don't think you get your quarterback when you're that depleted.
But they see Washington Commanders go from 4-13 to the NFC Championship game in one season. So they think to themselves,
Washington had way better weapons than the Raiders do.
No, I agree with that. But they think to themselves, maybe we can go at least get ourselves in the playoffs if we go draft the right guy.
That's not a good enough roster for the Raiders. They need to trade down and get picks.
Mm-hmm.
They're about 2 drafts away from their young quarterback. Yeah. They're not that close overall to
even if they're totally in love with this guy.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I don't think they should do it. I don't think they should give away first-round picks in the future, things like that. But I have this feeling they might do it. I really do.
Yeah, they might.
Yeah. This one's pretty interesting.
You're still selling jerseys when you have your exciting young quarterback,
That's right. And he's got Brock Bowers, so that'd be an interesting connection.
Yeah.
So this next one, the Jerry Jones, maybe the worst GM in football. I hope he stays with the Cowboys. I'd be very happy with that.
Yeah.
Talks about how the Niners traded him fool's gold with Trey Lance, and they went ahead and released him this week. So was this surprising to you? I mean, I think we all looked at that trade like what are you doing? It was pretty clear to everybody he wasn't an NFL quarterback, and 49ers moved on from him very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I think he was a perfect example of where you go matters. I think that he was with the Niners, and for some reason, he just kind of got bypassed. His development wasn't taken very seriously. And then he never really worked out in Dallas. So
he got beat out by Brock Purdy in camp. So
right. But I'm saying I don't think he was given that much of a serious look. And he brought a lot of it on himself, I'm sure. But it's too bad. I think if he had gone to a different situation, it might have been a different development arc, and he could have been maybe okay by now.
Well, then he comes into this franchise where they have Dak Prescott for the next probably 5 years at least, and he couldn't beat out Cooper Rush for quarterback 2, so he couldn't beat out Brock Purdy or Cooper Rush, and that was it.
Yeah.
So do you think he'll get picked up by somebody on the practice squad or something?
I do think so, but I don't think he's going to see the field very much for the rest of his career.
I agree. It's interesting to see that he made this mistake. As soon as he did it, I didn't understand what he was doing. So the next one is the Rams have recommitted to Mr. Stafford, Matt Stafford, who's brought them a Super Bowl for 2 years. It's where he wanted to stay. He was making overtures with other teams. He talked to Tom Brady and the Raiders. But in the end, he and his representatives, this is where he wanted to be for the rest of his career. He's probably going to retire after 2 years. What are your thoughts about the Rams picking up Stafford for 2 more years?
I think it's a good move. You definitely want to keep a leader like that around. A lot of people consider him one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a winner. He does so much for your team in the locker room, off the field. He's a great player. And I think that the only step for them would be a step down from his level. So,
and that team made the playoffs this past year. And when I look at the division, they're the best team in the division. They're going to be the best team again this year.
Yeah, they should make the playoffs again. And
so why would you mess that up? Just leave it the way it is and keep adding to the pieces.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. This was a smart deal. I'm not sure why.
Keep adding depth so the injuries don't get you.
The Rams wanted to pay him a hometown discount. He didn't want the hometown discount. They kind of ended up settling in the middle. So he got about $45 million. So I think it was a good deal for both sides. This was interesting. The hardest throws in combine history through all the combines. Josh Allen's number one was 62 miles an hour. You got Baker Mayfield second at 60 and Brian Bennett at 60. Logan Thomas, the tight end, at 60. And Kirk Cousins at 59. So any surprises in that list? Guys who throw the hardest?
Not really.
And Cam Ward is who they're comparing Josh Allen to. So it's kind of interesting. Pretty cool to see the kind of guns these guys have. I knew Baker had a strong arm. I didn't know it was that strong.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know it was second of all time or whatever.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And Logan Thomas. Wow.
Converted to tight end.
I know. So Deebo Samuel, we've talked a little bit about this trade. What do you think of some of the dynamics this does to the NFC East, to that division? What do you think it does to their draft strategy?
Well, I think they did it because of the Eagles being such a deep team. They're going to be around for a long time. So they had to make moves. You know, they needed to get Scary Terry, a helper on the other side. They got him at a very good price. So, yeah, you take that. And then it also helps your running game and do all these different screens.
Well, that's the thing. They hand it off to him. They put him in the slot. They put him in motion.
That's right.
They do screen and end arounds. He returns punts. I mean, it's just crazy the stuff they do with him.
Mm-hmm.
So it also, by the way, they had wide receivers, one of their needs for the draft. They can take that off the board now. Now they can go like mostly defense and offensive line. So it takes a piece that they don't need in the draft off the board. So anything else you think this does to reorder the NFC and anybody who may be looking at Deebo? There were some teams.
I think Washington needs a really good draft, but unfortunately the Eagles are going to keep drafting too. So I think Washington's trying to catch the Eagles, and they're doing everything they can. They're going to do a little bit through free agency, and they're going to do everything they can to draft well.
Well, speaking of Washington, this is what they've got right now. They've got, of course, Daniels, Robinson at running back, McLaurin, and now Deebo. And then you've got Payne and Allen on defense, and you've got Lattimore and Sanistrell, who they got in the draft last year. He's a really good cornerback. And they're sitting at 29 in the first round right now. They also have the most cap room in the league at $81 million. So they can do a lot more moves in the offseason to try to get better.
Yeah. They got a lot of latitude and leverage with the salary cap space. But they're trying to catch Howie Roseman and the Eagles.
Yeah.
And
isn't that what this is all about? They've now looked at the Eagles.
It's an arms race. It's an arms race.
It's an arms race, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And let's face it, the Giants aren't good, but Dallas is pretty solid, has some holes, but they can be a dangerous team. So this division actually got a lot better over the last 2 years.
It did. And the Giants are probably going to pick their guy, so they'll probably get a little bit better.
Yeah, they'll probably be a little better.
I think this solidifies the Commanders at least as the number 2 in that division.
I agree.
Yeah. So this was interesting news that came this morning. Carolina Panthers are now finalizing a deal to trade for elite receiver Cooper Kupp for a lucrative 5-year, $114 million trade and contract. The LA Rams will receive $4 million in cash plus first rounders in 2026 and 2027. So what do you think about this? Is this a good move? You're kind of mortgaging your future for a premier receiver.
I think it's a good move. I think he's gotten hurt before, but I don't think of him as an injury-prone player. So as long as he can stay healthy, I think he helps the Panthers a lot.
They talked to Dan Morgan about it today. I was watching the news, and he said that one of the things they love about him is he's really an elite blocker as well, and that he actually helps a lot in your run game. So it seems like not only is he a good receiver, but they want to have him be a big part of the run game. I don't know, though. Do you pay $25 million a year for a guy who's a good blocker? I don't know. We'll see.
No, I think they're going to have to get production out of him to make it worthwhile. If all they do is have him block, that's not worthwhile.
Agreed.
I think having a sure-handed receiver who's proven for a young quarterback like Bryce Young would be a positive.
And they're bringing Adam Thielen back.
Yep, same thing.
And then they have Larry Coker, who was one of the rookies of the year. He was actually their rookie of the year on the Panthers last year.
Yeah.
Was this kid Coker. So I don't know. That receiving group's coming along nicely.
Yep. They need defensive pieces and a little bit of offense. But basically, the Panthers aren't as far away as you might think.
They can actually go mostly defense in the draft now, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's look at college football and some of the offseason highlights. This guy for the Ohio State Buckeyes, Jeremiah Smith, who we saw last year, he was just flashed off the screen. He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's been offered by Oregon $4.5 million to hit the transfer portal in the offseason. And his representatives apparently are thinking about it. So what do you think about this kind of bidding war that's going for these freshmen now? It's really incredible.
I mean, it's a natural progression of
$4.5 million a year.
of NIL and yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, he's worth that,
I guess so.
He's worth it.
These premier teams think he's that good.
Good.
It's eye-popping to think a 19-year-old kid could be looking at that kind of money. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So this next one was interesting. Former Major League Baseball first-round pick is leaving baseball to go play college football at the age of 26. And he said with his representative that he's going to play for Indiana, by the way. And he said that he felt like college football and eventually pro football actually was a better career path for him, and that it was a better kind of overall opportunity path. And he was a first-round pick in Major League Baseball. So does this say a little bit about where these sports stand in terms of popularity? And
yeah, maybe. Sometimes it's just an individual choice, though. If if I'm going to go for it in one of these sports, it's got to be the one that you love the most.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. He's a wide receiver in football, so we will see how he does for the Hoosiers next year.
Mm-hmm.
So this one was kind of interesting. Essentially, for Texas, they've now received the most amount of revenue in 1 year that's ever been reported. They had $332 million in athletic revenue for football for the 24 fiscal year. They're making so much money hand over fist that Steve Sarkisian's new deal that he just signed doesn't even touch it. And they have so much money brimming out of this program that they're by far the biggest program in terms of dollars. So is that really the bottom line now for college football, especially, that you're going to have kind of your top 10 programs that have the biggest athletic revenue, and they're the guys who are going to get all the players? That's what it seems like, right?
Pretty much. Yep. It kind of was always like that, but it's made it more pronounced and obvious now.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting is they never used to have to report their revenue, and under the new system with NIL and everything, they actually have to report. So now you're starting to really have the books opened up and people can see how much money these universities are making, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how you compete with like an SEC team if you're in one of the mid-major conferences. You just can't. $332 million in revenue. So as long as we understand that's the system, you have kind of the haves and the have-nots, and the haves are going to get bigger. So next one's a very similar concept. The Go Blue Michigan Boosters have now helped Michigan snag 4-star running back Deshaun Radu, who's been compared to Detroit Lions' Jahmyr Gibbs as a game changer in college football. And he came to Michigan for NIL reasons. He's going to make almost $3 million a year next year as Michigan's starting running back. Any thoughts about this? What continues to be a trend in football?
Not really. I mean, that's part of it. It's just
these college clubs are like
the money is you're basically a free agent. That's it.
Every season.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's no contracts. Everything's a 1-year deal.
No contracts. You can transfer whenever you want. There's no salary cap yet. They've been talking about it, but they haven't put it in yet. So it's kind of an unregulated mess, I think.
No question.
So you're recruiting your guys after every season, basically begging them to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was interesting. The Miami Hurricanes quarterback Carson Beck, who was with Georgia last year, had both of his cars stolen in his South Florida home this past week. He also had his girlfriend, Hannah Cavender, who was a famous basketball player and influencer. Her SUV was also stolen, but found later. So what are your thoughts about this? I know you spent some time down in South Florida and you saw the real aspects of the fact that's the car stolen.
I had my car stolen twice.
Yeah, it's the car stolen capital of the world down there.
Yeah, it's pretty bad down there, man.
Yeah. And what do you think about the fact that he even has two cars? Like most college kids don't have two cars.
I think they're Ferraris.
Yeah.
Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a nice car. Or he used to.
So you think he's regretting going to Miami, or is it just an inconvenience at this point?
I don't know. They have a lot of money between him.
Are the people stealing down there? Are they all kind of drug gangs kind of people, or who are they usually?
Oh, it's a bunch of everything.
Mm-hmm. That was interesting. I'm glad he got him back.
Yeah.
So this one is interesting. This is a guy named Daniel Kelly, who's been a scout, and he's also a reporter. He claims that having watched all 4 years of Shedor's game film, that the film speaks loudly and that he's a guaranteed bust in the NFL. So your thoughts about
this? What I think about that? I think this guy's trying to get some publicity. I think he's trying to create negative reporting on him so he becomes somebody. I don't think anyone can say that guaranteed bust. There's no such thing. If Shedeur goes to a good situation, he works really hard, his dad stays out of it.
They don't start him right away. They bring him along.
Nose to the grind. Is brought along properly by not starting right away and given the latitude to learn and be new and be a rookie. If those things happen, he can be just fine.
I agree with you. I think saying he's a guaranteed bust this early, I completely disagree with that. I think it's all about
that's the kind of hot take where you're trying to become famous.
Exactly. Like if Brock Purdy had gone to a really bad situation, we wouldn't even know his name. He'd probably be out of the league right now.
That's right.
He wouldn't even be in the league. So it's all about situation. I agree with you. Definitely a hot take, and we'll see if Mr. Daniel Kelly is correct, but I don't agree with him. We're going to see who he goes to. Some more NCAA headlines here. This one was interesting. Marshall Manning, Peyton Manning's son, is out throwing around. He's a middle schooler, but already very, very tall and already has a gun of an arm. And there's a funny quote here from Yoda. There is another. Another Manning coming.
It's just like the Jedis, yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, can you imagine a kid like this eventually will come up through the system? I think so, right? Marshall Manning.
You sure increase the chances.
He's probably going to be 6'3" or 6'4".
Yeah.
Gun of an arm.
Yeah, he's
smart like his dad.
Yeah, he's got all the intangibles, and you just wait and see if he takes to it, and it takes to him.
He looks to me like a little bit older than your boys, and he's an 8th grader. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Marshall Manning.
Well, 8th grade is considerably older than mine. Mine are in 3rd grade.
It is. But it's not that far off.
No, yeah, it's going fast.
So we have a series of these quotes here. This first one: we can't compete with any school that has more NIL money than us. That's the issue. That's Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I mean,
you have a lot of these coaches that are kind of complaining about NIL system that they've all bought into. So I don't know.
I'm sure that happens. I'm sure that happens when you are on the losing end of a guy that chooses someone else because of money. But I don't think that most of those teams have a serious problem with money.
You can understand the frustration, though. I mean, these guys are probably losing big recruits they really want, and it gets frustrating.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, that they spend a lot of time on. They go in their living room, everything, get to know their parents.
Yeah, and some school swoops in with an extra $500,000 a year.
You get $3 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's frustration. Here's another one: frustration from Mr. Clemson coach, Dabo Swinney, NIL wasn't supposed to be who can pay the most money. That was his quote. My question is, what does it mean then, NIL? Was it just to compensate people a little bit of money, or I'd be real curious what he answers to that. What is it supposed to be then?
Yeah, I don't know.
In other words, he doesn't think it was supposed to be bidding war. It was supposed to be a system where you stay at your school for 4 years, but you get a little bit of compensation.
And you get a little bit of the money early, and you should make, $100,000 or a couple $100,000. These ones making 5 to 10 million, that's insane.
Yeah.
To go get educated for free at a university, it's like,
right.
Wow.
And driving 2 Ferraris.
Yeah.
Yeah. These guys, these old school coaches, they're really still struggling with it. You can see it. They're really, they're trying to stay there, but they're struggling with it. So here's the last one. This was, out of Nebraska's Matt Rule. They said some schools have so much NIL money that traditional recruiting battles aren't even fair anymore. So what are your thoughts about that? And do you feel sorry for some of these guys? I mean, he's trying to compete against Michigan.
Yeah, because these guys were groomed up to focus on the right things, development of players, and it's coming down to just simple money. And it makes their coaching jobs almost irrelevant because you can't hang on to your team unless some booster somewhere puts money in. And I don't know. You build all these players.
I think they're trying to telegraph that, Matt Rule, he's trying to say, look, I'm not going to be able to compete with Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State.
Right.
I'm not going to be in that league. I think Lane Kiffin's saying I can't do it with Georgia and Alabama. And, Dabo is saying, look, I'm in the ACC. You want me to compete against these SEC teams?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's interesting. You can just feel the whole industry is just changing so fast.
Mm.
This next one's interesting. You were talking about Tootin being the top guy at the combine. Well, these are the scores, or these are the times that they did. Tootin having the best time. Jaden Blue, Brashard Smith, R.J. Harvey, Montrell Johnson, all down. You got Trevor Etienne, Trevion Henderson, all these guys all the way down. This was the fastest 40-yard time on average of any running back class in NFL history. And that's without Ashingenti. So any thoughts on this running back class that seems really deep?
Yeah. I think Omarion Hampton really helped himself a lot. And he's got real good tape out there, really good 40 time. I think he's going to be chosen higher than a lot of people think. Mm-hmm. It was a really good class. And it's going to be a great class for putting talented running backs in there.
You're essentially next year going to see about 15 great new rookie running backs. And what's crazy is the running back position's already been coming back slowly. I mean, it's really becoming more and more important.
That's right.
And now every team wants to have one of these guys, who's a really great back. So I think it's going to make the league a lot better, have all this depth.
Yeah, a little more balance.
Mm-hmm. So next one here, these are the combine quarterbacks. You've got Cam and Shador both not throwing, and then everybody else throwing. You have Brady Cook there, who we know a little bit about. We talked about him with Missouri. You've got Jackson Dart, who's been making a lot of waves. Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, who had the horrific day yesterday, unfortunately. Riley Leonard, McCord, Milroe, Curtis Rourke, and some of these other guys here. They consider this actually not a very deep class in terms of depth, in terms of quality, but I don't know. A lot of guys here in the second day that could maybe be picked up for developmental purposes. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good players in there, maybe not great, but it's too early to say because they haven't gone through the program yet, the development, sitting behind a Mahomes or one of these veteran guys. This is a light class for the very top echelon guys, the can't miss prospects, but I guarantee you there's a lot of guys that end up making it okay from this class. You just don't know which ones in advance.
Like, the Patriots picked up their guy of the future if Drake May doesn't work out in the 5th round last year. So, like, you could maybe see Jalen Milroe go in the 5th or 6th round and somebody pick him up and develop him for a year or two before he has to play.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Riley Leonard, same thing. Kyle McCord could be a really good quarterback in about 3 years. So, yeah, we'll see. Jackson Dart, why do you think he decided to throw? Everyone's considered him as kind of the third guy. Why do you think he decided to throw?
I'm not sure. I think he had a few shaky games toward the end of the season. I remember I watched him playing one, and I think he threw 3 straight interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a very good quarterback with upside potential, but I don't think he was graded in such a way that he could sit anything out. I think scouts wanted to see him in motion.
And do you think Will Howard's going to be able to recover? I mean, he's had a really horrific week in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
They always put first what they see on tape in live games against live competition. That's number one. And then secondary, all these metrics of how high you can jump and how fast you can run.
If you get yourself a Dylan Gabriel in 3rd or 4th round and you're able to sit him for 2 years, you might have a really nice prospect there in the future, or Quinn Ewers. So I think maybe organizations are starting to learn not to rush these guys in, especially if they're not top tier.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely right.
Some of the memes for this week, this one, if you want arm power, get Josh Allen. If you want accuracy, get Joe Burrow. If you want speed, Lamar Jackson. If you want leadership, Jalen Hurts. But if you want all of these, get Patrick Mahomes.
That's right.
So what are your thoughts about that? Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. He's such a good player. The only way you can stop him is get pressure. And that's not a guarantee, because if you get there, he's so good against the blitz. You have to get pressure with your front 4.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, is most teams can't.
No doubt. I agree with this one as well. I think he's one of the greatest ever. I'm not quite sure he's going to ever get Tom Brady, maybe, but he might be in the 2nd or 3rd slot all time. This one's interesting. Carson Beck having his Lambo stolen is the exact reason why I wish Johnny Football played in the NIL era. The stories of that dude with money in college would have been amazing.
Yeah.
I love that one. Can you imagine if he was making $3-4 million a year in college? I'm not really sure he would have gotten to graduation, really. Yeah. He's just kind of a wild man. This one's interesting. Aaron Rodgers is making good headway on the Brett Favre checklist. Become star of the Packers, win the Super Bowl, keep choking in the playoffs, hold team hostage, team drafts replacement, play with the Jets, have an awful tenure in New York, and then play with the Vikings. So essentially, Rodgers has done all those things except for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on that? How close their careers
have been?
Yeah,
there's a lot of parallels. You can't fight the parallels. They're there. They're very different quarterbacks, but one replaced the other. So there's that little bit of history.
And then play with the Jets, and then have an offered tenure in New York.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny to watch. They're funny to see. This one's pretty interesting. This kid for ECU, East Carolina, he's a punter. He's the oldest caller in college football as he enters the transfer portal. He's 32 years old, and he entered the transfer portal. So somebody actually said this has got to be illegal, but it actually isn't. He still has eligibility to be an amateur. So we'll see if anybody picks him up. Luke Larson, 32-year-old punter. This one was kind of interesting by Terry Bradshaw. They don't consider me an elite quarterback, but I won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, twice back-to-back. No radio in my helmet. I called my own plays. No rules protecting me or my receivers. No truck rule, no spy gate, no deflate gate, just me and my men. So do you think he has a point?
He's got an excellent point. He never gets any credit, and yet he was certainly one of the reasons why they were so hard to play against.
Why do you think he gets passed over so much?
I'm not sure. I think he's thought of as a guy that was on a team that got loaded with talent everywhere, and he doesn't get much credit. But
do you think he said that no radio in my helmet is kind of a slight to the guys today, that they have to be told what plays to do? And
I don't think so. I think he was just saying that it was a different time and it was harder back then, which it was, and he's proud of what he got accomplished in an era where it was harder to play quarterback.
And the no rules protecting me, that really is true. Like there was literally, you could do anything to a quarterback. You could absolutely destroy the guy. So I don't know. I have respect for him, and I think he has a point here. I really do. Yeah. He should get more notoriety. He's in the Hall of Fame though, so I'm not sure what he wants, but this was interesting. This was before the bad combine performance yesterday, but somebody said, what did I watch? College football fans are in utter shock over Ohio State Will Howard's cringeworthy Dr. Pepper commercial where he's acting kind of effeminate. What are your thoughts about this? Was it just bad taste, bad timing?
Yeah, not every opportunity should be taken, I guess. I don't know.
This leading into like one of the most horrific days throwing ever by quarterback. Yeah, I don't know. You need to have a good agent who kind of maybe sometimes say, it might not be a good idea to act all effeminate. You might not want to do that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I like Will Howard. I'm just kind of scratching my head a little bit over his kind of lead up to this draft. This was interesting. All four of these guys were completely wrong. One predicted the Eagles to finish third in the NFC East. Cam Newton said Hurts, nothing more than a game manager. You had Skip Bayless saying Saquon to Philly doesn't scare me one bit. And then, of course, Colin Cowherd, Eagles may not get into the red zone against the Chiefs. So any thoughts about all these sports pundits? I mean, I know you and I do this business too, and it's not always easy. But
yeah, we're wrong quite a bit ourselves.
How could these guys have missed this much? Third in the NFC East?
Yeah, they're doing hot takes, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. The Eagles were clearly on the upswing because they drafted well. It was obvious from the beginning.
Saquon to Philly doesn't scare me one bit.
Saquon, I mean,
what? He was the best back in football.
I know.
No, I don't know. It's just interesting, and this makes me feel a little better for you and me when we do miss sometimes.
Yeah.
Of course, we do hit sometimes too, but I'm not sure we miss this badly. I don't think we would have ever said something like this.
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think so. Never get into the red zone against the Chiefs. It's like, okay.
We've had a few misses, though.
A couple. Here's some NBA headlines. ESPN analyst suggests optimistic ceiling for LeBron-Luka Doncic pairing. And you can see one of the nights they had the other night, Lakers just getting to the point where they're almost unstoppable. And their defense is so locked down that they may be the only team in the West that can actually compete with OKC, who seem to be running away with it. So they've gone from the number 8 seed to maybe the team that can actually give OKC a challenge. So any other thoughts about the Luka trade and what it's done for that team?
No, I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for all the teams involved. I think everybody got better from the trade. I think Luka's found a nice little home out there with LeBron and company. He gets support. He is the support. And Dallas gets Anthony Davis, a very good player who plays really good both ways, offense and defense, and they get picks. So the future is bright because of the trade, and I think that Luka's in a good place for him. I know LeBron likes having the help, so it literally is a win-win all over the place.
Now you lose Anthony Davis, who's a big part of your overall program, and you won a championship with him a couple of years ago. But the fact that they add one superstar to this roster and they go from kind of a middling team that's going to lose in the first round to one that looks like they may go all the way to the West Finals.
Yeah, it was a good trade.
It's amazing. I wasn't sure he would have this kind of impact, but he really is. It's really interesting. Butler's eye-opening Warriors impact is not exaggerated. As I said before, they went from essentially the first team out of the playoffs to it looks like they're going to make it now with 7 straight wins. Not sure you can really underestimate how much this has turned them around and turned Steph around as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like he's there to help a lot, and the players that are there get reinvigorated. So it was a good trade. You take a fairly disgruntled player like Jimmy Butler, you give him a new opportunity, have him play with Hall of Famers. And
now, I will say I do not agree with how he acted early in the season. No. I know he wanted to get traded. He made it clear. But the fact that he wasn't even trying and that they kept having to take him out of games. And I don't think that was
he mishandled that pretty badly.
Yeah. But I'm happy to see that Golden State has resuscitated themselves. Luka Doncic or Jimmy Butler, which massive trade has more impact? So that's the first question of the night. What do you think, Robbie?
Probably Luka.
I think so too. I would have said when these two happened a couple weeks back, I would have said Jimmy Butler. But now that I've seen this foursome in play, it seems like the Lakers have been transformed into a contender.
Yeah.
Whereas Golden State's going to make the playoffs, but I would not call them a contender at this point. So I'd say Luka as well. Cool. Guys, drop us a comment. Tell us what you think. Luka or Jimmy Butler in terms of a bigger impact. So next one was interesting for us. Of course, DeAndre Hunter gets traded from the Atlanta Hawks to the Cleveland Cavaliers and goes and joins our boy Ty Jerome and a lot of other great players. Cavaliers were already in first place when this trade happened. And instead of being satisfied, the Cleveland Cavs actually go for it. And they're going to actually try to go to the championship. Thoughts about this trade? And it's really worked out well. He's been playing great for them so far.
Oh, it's a great trade. It's excellent for the player. You can see he's got the energy, the desire to play hard. I think he likes the new situation. And then for his team, he's so happy to have – they're so happy to have Hunter that, they're just lighting it up. And then, the Hawks are trying to think to the future. So you get rid of some good pieces so you can get draft picks.
So last night he had 26 points and 11 rebounds, and Ty Jerome had 23 points and 8 assists. So they were on the floor a lot together and laughing and joking up and high-fiving. So how cool is it to see these two ex-UVA Cavaliers now on the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Those are two of the special ones that were on that team. So
and now getting to play in a first-place team in the East. It's kind of pretty cool.
It's awesome
to see what they're doing. So this last one here, the 2025 All-Star Championship inspires mixed reactions despite format change. I think everyone assumes and thinks that the championship weekend was a little bit better than the year before. They did this kind of tournament-style format where they had 4 teams with 2 semifinals and a final. So it was a little bit more competitive. There still wasn't any defense being played, but there did seem to be some aspect of the players actually trying and wanting to win the little mini tournament. So any thoughts about All-Star Weekend, if it was a little bit better, what they can do to make it better?
I think it needed a lot of tweaking. There was very little actual basketball. I don't think they're on the right track, really. But it's good that they're willing to change. But just change for the change of change's sake does not get you anywhere, really. Some of the ideas were probably decent. They just didn't work. But I think overall there wasn't enough actual basketball to enjoy.
I think having the little mini tournament is a good idea, and I think it was 5% better than last year. I still think there's ways to go to make it competitive. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to need to do. They need to maybe create some kind of incentive or something. But I do like the new format, the little mini tournament.
Some of the ideas were very interesting, but I think it needed to be done differently. And also it needs time to kind of develop.
True. Looking at the NCAA basketball headlines, Big East now belongs to St. John's. Rick Pitino's got them really rolling up there in New York. Interestingly enough, he made a proposal this past week to think about combining the Big East and the ACC to strengthen the conference from a basketball perspective and try to compete with the SEC. So any thoughts about Rick Pitino's thought there? And would that be possible to do basketball-only merger?
I think he's a pretty good fit at St. John's. He's a New York guy. As far as merging with the ACC, I don't know. Do you do it in all sports? Just basketball?
I mean, they don't have football teams, so I guess UConn does, but most teams don't have football teams. So I think it maybe be just a basketball merger at this point. I think it's interesting. We should look at it because the super conferences are coming together, and for the ACC to continue to compete, you may want to add UConn and St. John's and some of these teams.
Yeah, agreed.
To get stronger. Mm-hmm. Next one is Michigan State rolls past Michigan in a rivalry win. It was a real big win for them. Michigan State, to me, looks like they're rounding into shape, looks like they're battle-tested and ready for tournament time. And the question is, can they win a national title, even though they're not going to be one of the top 4 seeds? My personal feeling is yes, with that coaching staff.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Izzo.
With the big men they always have, that front line, they can always do damage or at least go to the Final Four.
Yeah.
That's my thought on that one. We have Mr. Cooper Flagg, who continues his current road. And if all dominoes fall in order, he could basically deliver Christian Laettner's entire college career in the span of 9 months. Just think about that.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And he destroyed Illinois and impressed NBA scouts in his route in that game and had just a huge score line. There's been some talk about maybe he would come back next year for his second year at Duke for a $5 million guarantee. So I guess there's some possibility he's going to try to come for a second year. We'll see. But thoughts about Cooper Flagg? I know we've kind of gone into him multiple times in this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, basically he's leading his team in almost every category. He's 6'9"?
He's about to set every ACC rookie record there ever was.
Freshman guard, just he's the real deal. He's one of those few that can live up to the hype.
He hits long threes and then he dunks from the foul line. It's just crazy. Hadn't seen a guy like this in a long time.
Yeah.
A-Rod hit a half-court shot to win a student $10,000. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
But it was a pretty cool. What a cool moment for him to just take one shot, one-handed, boom, goes in. That was a neat thing. If you guys didn't see that, I'll drop that in the description down below. You can take a look at that highlight. It was pretty cool. 2025 March Madness odds, Auburn remains the lone favorite. Mm-hmm. I think you said you've seen them play a couple times recently. I have too. Yeah. I have not seen a team as good as Auburn this year. To me, they clearly stand out there. They
don't need Broom. They don't need Broom sometimes, and they still win big.
They go 12 deep with 4 and 5 stars. It's insane how good that team is. Mm-hmm. And Broom comes in, and they're just, they were already the best team in the country without him, and now with him on the floor. Pretty crazy. I think Duke is maybe the only team that can maybe challenge them in the Final Four.
I think you're right. Duke's pretty loaded, so they have a shot. Good.
Defense sets the tone for Indiana in an upset win over Purdue. So that was a big rivalry game, happened this past week. Mm-hmm. Houston hangs on versus a shorthanded Iowa State.
Yeah, I watched that one.
That was a really good game. Houston, I think, is really coming on. Iowa State, of course, has been kind of top 10 most of the year and has had a couple kind of upsetting losses lately. But Houston's really, really good. These are the Naismith Award power rankings right now. Broom still sitting in first, Cooper Flagg in second, Clayton Jr., Braden Smith, and Cam Jones. Those are your top 5. It's very likely one of those 5 will win it, and it'll probably be one of those top 2 guys, I would think. And I think either one of those guys would win it in a normal year, but the fact that they're both in the same year with each other is, makes it really interesting this year. Mm-hmm. So this is our basketball AP Top 25 for Week 17. Auburn sitting in first, Florida, Duke, Alabama, Houston in 5, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Iowa State's dropped to 8, Texas Tech, and St. John's. Rick Pitino's got them up in the top 10. Pretty incredible. You have a lot of other great teams there: Michigan, Purdue, Michigan State, etc. Only 2 teams from the ACC in the top 25. So thoughts about this rankings right now? This looks like
it's very concerning for the ACC, of course. It's kind of interesting. There's teams up there that aren't basketball powerhouses, but that always do better than you expect. Tennessee.
Although Virginia played Texas Tech in the championship in 2019, so they've kind of been there for a while.
Yeah, it's true.
And then you see some of the regular powerhouses: Wisconsin, Michigan, Purdue, Michigan State, UK is there, Arizona. It's going to be a great tournament. I think there's a lot of really good teams this year.
Oh, yeah.
So here's some other reports coming out this week. UNC extended Hubert Davis for 3 more years. What are your thoughts about that? I think he has kind of a mixed record.
Yeah, he started out his first year. He won the let's see, what did he win? He went to the semifinals.
So he went to the final and lost.
Finals. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a real good run that first year, and I think they also know that when you're not throwing money around in NIL, it's a positive when you have stability at the coaching position. If you can have stability there, then you're setting the table for good players to come to you.
True.
But if you're always firing your people, it's real fresh for the players who are coaches to decide who am I going to.
I think their front office had a chance to look at UNC's performance the last 3 years with him, and they made a decision that he's done a pretty good job recruiting. He's maybe had some disappointing moments this year and last year, but for the most part, they like him. The players like him. And so they would decide to go ahead and recommit to him. It's not so easy to find a coach to coach at UNC, which is a huge program. So,
right.
I think this is the right move for them for now.
I think so.
And then very depressing for the rest of us in the ACC, Duke announces 2 5-star elite sophomore top 26 recruit twin brothers, Caden and Cameron Boozer. Of course, their father was a huge Duke player as well.
Yeah.
So the rich just get richer. What are your thoughts about these twins, 5 stars committing to Duke?
It's not surprising they're going to follow their dad's footsteps.
We're going to have to watch this for the next couple of years, Robbie.
Well, unless they're one and done.
Yeah. But I think, I was kind of curious how Shire would do following Coach K. But can you admit that he's been better than expected? At least he has for me.
Absolutely.
In the recruiting wars and everything else?
Yeah. Handling all the elements of coaching.
Yeah. And I hate to say that because, I dislike Duke, but
well,
I have respect for him, and I have respect for the program he's putting together.
Yeah. He's a really good recruiter, obviously.
Yep. It'll be fun to watch these guys, although not fun from a Virginia perspective. So, so here's our way too early NFL 2025 draft board top 20. And this is our subscriber challenge for the week, guys. How many quarterbacks and running backs will be taken in the first round? So that's the question, and I'm going to ask Rob to answer that as well. So here's the projected first round, according to several of the experts. This is what they think it's going to look like. You got Abdul Carter, Cam Ward going to the Browns, Travis Hunter, Will Campbell, Mason Graham, Ashton Genty being stolen by the Raiders at 6, Shador going to the Jets, Jalen Walker, the pass rusher to the Panthers, Tyler Warren to the Saints, Josh Simmons, etc. So you got a lot of great players going here in the first round. You have essentially 2 quarterbacks right now going in the first round, according to these projections, and then a couple of running backs. So, Robbie, what do you think? How many quarterbacks, how many running backs will go?
First round. I think 3 in the first round and 2 running backs in the first round.
I completely agree. I was going to say 3 and 2 as well. I think that there's so many running backs that it actually hurts them in the first round because everybody knows they can get a good one in the second or third round.
That's right.
She drops them all down. So I do think Jackson Dart will sneak into that kind of bottom of the first round range. I'm not sure who he's going to go to, but I think he'll sneak in. So let us know, guys, what you think. How many quarterbacks are going to go and how many running backs will go in the first round? Let's take a look back at last year. This is the consensus winners, according to the AP, of last year's draft. And we have the Washington Commanders, number 1. One of the main reasons that they actually got to the NFC Championship game. Of course, they had Daniels and Newton and Sanistril and Coleman and McCaffrey. Those are their 5 major picks last year. Number 2 was the Eagles. Of course, they ended up winning the championship. Chargers, Rams, Broncos, Giants, Raiders, Buccaneers, Packers, and 49ers. So those are your top 10 for last year's drafts. Any problems with those rankings, Robbie?
No, I think it's pretty good. I think the Lions should be up there, but okay.
Yeah. And you don't see the Bears or the Patriots.
The Bears were the worst ranked offense in the NFL.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it when I saw the stats.
Right. Well, again, Peters and Roseman are the top 2 GMs in football, and so it shouldn't surprise us that they had the 2 best drafts. So
yeah, but I do believe that the Lions are right in there at like number 3.
Well, I would say Lions, if you look back at like the last 3 or 4 drafts combined, they would definitely be in that kind of top 3 area.
Yeah.
This is interesting. The top 12 quarterbacks averaged by salary. Of course, Dak's number 1 at 60. Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Burrow, Tua, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, and then Patrick Mahomes all the way tied for 12th. So this is what we always talk to about when it comes to a hometown discount.
Yeah.
So how many of these guys do you think are overpaid?
Most of them.
Me too. Can I say all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes gets it. He's got the Tom Brady vision of this thing. Look, I want to have an offensive line. Look, I want to have receivers. Look, I want to have defense. I want to have Chris Jones. And so I'm willing to take a little bit less and I'll make it up in endorsements. So interesting there. Well, Robbie, I'm going to hand it over to you, man. But before I do, I have a really good quote from you here from Lou Holtz. Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do. Attitude determines how well you do it. And I've always loved his leadership. And I thought that was really great.
I like
quote.
that.
And then on the team, with the teams with the brightest futures, we have our Washington Commanders in there in the NFL. I thought that was pretty cool to see them there. You have on the NBA side the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are doing great this year. In the MLB, we have our Baltimore Orioles sitting there with brightest futures. And then, of course, in the NHL, you have a bunch of teams there that unfortunately don't include our Capitals or Hurricanes. But thoughts about any of these brightest future teams?
No, I think they all belong there. They all have these good young nucleus of stars coming up, just budding, sort of in their infant stages of them hitting their peak. You put a bunch of those young players together, you got real exciting prospects, and you can dream forward all the success. And it doesn't always work out that way, but
true.
They all have a reason to be on this list because of things that are going on in their organization that are exciting.
You notice your picture this week has the Tewaaraton Award behind you.
Yep.
So what you got for us this week?
Looks a little funny, but Jets were second worst rushing team. I didn't know that. Yeah, it's been 1 month since the LeBron and Luka pairing. and they moved all the way up to second. So that's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did watch the NFL Combine with the big men, and that was really cool. Jared Wilson hit a 4.84, and he's 310 pounds. And Armand Membu from Missouri. Those two guys kind of stood out above everyone else. And
I really love watching the edge guys too, who can really run.
Yeah. At the wide receiver position, Matthew Golden ran a 4.29 He was the fastest. He can fly. And Dante Thornton from Tennessee, and Jalen Lane from I don't know where he's from, Utah. Can't remember where he was from. 4.34. So really, really fast wide receivers as well. I think skill position players minus quarterback. This draft's going to put a lot of players in there, a lot of talent. So other than that, Brady Cook did really well in the combine. Jalen Milroe had a weird thing where his hands measured back when he was at Senior Bowl or whatever it was, 8 3/4 inches, and then they measured him at the combine 9 3/8.
Huh.
So his hand got more than an inch bigger. Doesn't make sense. Abdul Carter, of course, was out with a foot fracture, which is unfortunate. One of the most interesting players I ran into in the combine was J.J. Peaks, who is he's from Ole Miss, and he is a huge dude who is a defensive lineman and fullback. And he's a dual player that most people don't know about him. And they call him the thick six. He's a thick six. He has 3.5 sacks last year and 8 touchdowns.
Oh, wow.
7 rushing and 1 receiving. So he's got hands. He's a big dude. He's strong. He's the kind of guy that Belichick would love to have, just use him in a whole bunch of different ways. He's 6'2 and a half and 309 pounds, and he's a fullback.
It is interesting that last year was considered a quarterbacks and wide receivers draft, and this year is considered a running backs and defensive line draft.
Yep.
Which is
I think there's a lot of future stars are going to come out of this draft. Anyway, on to the mailbag. First one, the best part of these unusual sports is that they show how fun and unpredictable human creativity can be. At Berthold. So this was from our last episode, which was unusual, strange, cool sports. And Berthold felt like it was fun and unpredictable, human creativity. So I totally concur with that. How do you feel about it?
Totally. Yeah. That's why we do that series. We love it. We love to research and we love to watch the videos and then bring them to you guys. So, glad you felt that way. We feel the same. A lot of fun to do.
Yep. Okay. Next one. Honestly, some of these sports look tougher than the traditional ones. I have a newfound respect for these athletes. At Bjorn.
I completely agree. Some of the sports, I have no idea how they do them. And they take incredible balance and skill, and they're not like the kind of sports that you grow up with. So there's something you have to kind of learn in your adulthood to do. So,
right. And you don't have an idol who plays it because this is a new sport or some other, it's interesting.
It is. Yeah, it's fun to watch.
So thanks Bjorn for your comment. Next one. After watching this, I feel like I need to travel more and experience these sports firsthand. Who's up for a game of Sepak Takraw at Matilda?
That is one of the more fun sports to watch, don't you think? Where they're playing volleyball. I
totally relate to this feeling like I got to travel more and I want to see these things live. I do too.
You were talking about in the episode, and rightfully so, how much you loved Turkey when you were there. And we were talking about camel wrestling. And we were saying we need to go back to Turkey and we need to go watch a camel wrestling match. Yeah. Life's about experiences. And you and I have gotten into our 50s now, and we believe in experiences. And so I completely agree with this comment. You need to travel more. You need to go see these things live for yourself.
For sure. Okay, so thanks, Matilda, for that one. And then last one, strange, yes. Cool, absolutely. At Aren. So short and sweet. Obviously, they think it's strange and cool. And what are your thoughts on that?
So they're agreeing with us. They're agreeing with how we tag
They're
the show.
agreeing with us. Strange, yes, and cool, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. We love that series. We're already formulating a part 4 here in the future. So, guys, send us some sports you want us to cover.
Yeah. Thanks for supporting us by watching, and we definitely recommend that you see our Strange Sports episodes. Those are always very, very cool because it's different. You're not going to see that content anywhere else that I've run into. And so I think that's pretty unique, and it's fun. It's fun watching people be good at something you've never tried or never even thought of trying. And then you just shake your head and marvel at how their skill level is due to them practicing it over and over and over. So
and when it's a really crazy one, you just scratch your head like, how in the world did they think of that? And that goes to that first comment you had about creativity, the creativity of the human mind. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always going to want to compete. They're always going to use what resources they have. And it's wild to see people in motion, in action.
For sure.
And that's it for the mailbag.
Well, Robbie, those are some good ones, man.
Yeah, it was a good episode. So it definitely got some fun comments going.
So what are you most excited about coming up here? We got ACC tournament. We got March Madness. We have hockey heating up. NBA's heating up.
Definitely March Madness, no question.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I can't wait for it every year.
It's so fun. Everyone goes in thinking their bracket's going to be great. And then halfway through the first day, 98% of people are eliminated because there's an upset somewhere. And then some little old lady in Iowa is still alive, and you don't know how because your bracket is smithereens. It's just so fun.
Well, guys, 2 weeks from today is going to be our March Madness special, March 17th, and we are going to take you through all the teams, all the brackets, and then Rob and I at the end are going to actually show our bracket. And so that's going to be a lot of fun, and then you guys get to go with us on the journey to see, what we got right, what we got wrong, and how much of our bracket gets busted on the first weekend. So
definitely feel free to comment about how silly our picks are, because they probably will be pretty far off, but it's going to be fun doing it. And hopefully we'll have some good justification for why a team's going to do well or another team's not. But we're going to be wrong also. So
I always resist picking big upsets because I always feel like the favorite's going to win every year, but I always get disappointed. So this year I think I might go a little outside the box. I think I'm going to pick some big upsets and just go for it.
And you definitely look silly when they're wrong, but man, when you pick an upset and it's right, you look like a genius.
That's right. That's right. So, well, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week for the weekend recap, and we'll see you guys a little later this week. We have got a great episode coming your way. Thank you so much for all your patronage, and please like this video, subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of great material coming your way, and we really appreciate you guys tuning in with us and dropping us the comments, and we're excited about this journey we're on with you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you checking us out with our episodes. Feel free to comment, give us ideas. We always want to hear from people out there. I know a lot of podcasts out there say that, but we actually do, because it keeps this whole conversation going that we're doing. And we appreciate all the support that we've gotten from friends, family, and all of our viewers. So we love it, and we're going to keep doing it. So keep coming back and join us.
Another shout out to our sponsor for tonight, Jersey Mike's. Guys, go pick up a sub at Jersey Mike's at your local store or on their app.
Love Jersey Mike's.
Have a great night. We'll see you next time.